The red dust of Kepler 442b's swirled around Marcus Chen's boots as he picked through the skeletal remains of the mining colony. The twin suns cast long shadows between the rusted machinery, and the silence pressed against his ears like a heavy blanket. He had been alone on this dead world for 3 years now, salvaging what others had left behind when the ore ran dry. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow and adjusted the plasma cutter on his belt. At 35, he had seen enough failed colonies to know when a place was truly finished. But something kept him here, perhaps the peace that came with solitude, or maybe just stubbornness. A soft whimper echoed from behind a collapsed prefab shelter. Marcus froze, his hand moving instinctively to his sidearm. No human had set foot on this world in over a year. The sound came again, weaker this time. Like a wounded animal, he crept around the debris and found her. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old by human standards, though her iridescent blue skin and the delicate fins behind her ears marked her as distinctly non-human. Her silver hair was matted with blood, and her small body was curled in a defensive position. One of her arms hung at an unnatural angle. Marcus had encountered the Australians before during his merchant marine days. They were an advanced species, proud and typically hostile to human contact. Finding one of their young here, injured and alone, sent alarm bells through his mind. The child's eyes fluttered open, revealing pupils that shifted from deep purple to gold. She looked at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Her lips moved, forming words in her musical language that he couldn't understand. Marcus slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a protein bar. The child's eyes locked onto it immediately. He broke off a small piece and held it out to her. After a moment's hesitation, she reached out with her good arm and took it, devouring it with obvious starvation. "Easy there, little one," Marcus said softly, his voice the first human sound to break the planetary silence in months. "Let me help you." As he gently examined her injuries, the child began to calm. Her broken arm would need setting, and she had several cuts that required cleaning. But it was the trust growing in her golden eyes that struck him most. This small being, so far from her own kind, was placing her life in his hands. Marcus carefully lifted her, surprised by how light she was. Her head rested against his shoulder, and he felt something shift inside his chest. For the first time in years, he wasn't alone, as he carried her back to his makeshift shelter. Neither of them knew that this moment of compassion would echo across the galaxy, changing the fate of both their species forever. Growing bonds and hidden truths. 3 months had passed since Marcus found the Australian child. He had learned to call her Zephyra, a name she had managed to communicate through a combination of gestures and the few human words she was beginning to master. Her arm had healed remarkably fast. Her natural curiosity had transformed his lonely existence into something resembling a family. Marcus had converted part of his shelter into a proper living space for her, complete with soft fabrics he had salvaged from the colony's remains. Zephyra had a talent for finding beauty in the desolate landscape, often bringing him crystalline rocks or unusual metal formations that caught her eye. "Marcus," she said one morning, her accent thick, but her pronunciation improving daily. She held up a piece of polished ore that seemed to glow with inner light. "Beautiful, yes?" he smiled, accepting the gift. "Very beautiful, Zephyra, like you." A blush darkened her blue skin to a deeper shade of indigo. Over the months, Marcus had noticed changes in her that went beyond simple recovery. Australians, he had learned, matured differently than humans. While she had seemed like a child when he found her, she was developing with startling rapidity, both physically and mentally. Their communication had evolved beyond basic needs. Zephyra would spend hours teaching him Australian words while he helped her with human concepts. During their lessons, Marcus found himself captivated by the grace of her movements and the intelligence that sparkled in her shifting eyes. One evening, as they sat by their small fire watching Kepler 4 for 2B's spectacular sunset, Zephyr's demeanor grew serious. She traced symbols in the dust between them, her expression troubled. "Zephyra princess," she said carefully, pointing to herself. "Family, gone. Bad people want Zephyra dead." Marcus felt his blood chill. "A princess," it explained the hunters he had spotted on the horizon recently, the strange ships that appeared and disappeared in the night sky. Why? Why do they want to hurt you? Zephyra's eyes flickered with pain. She struggled with the words, mixing Australian and human languages. Power, throne, Zephyra, rightful ruler. But Uncle wants crown for himself. Marcus reached out and took her hand, noting how her skin had grown warm at his touch. I won't let anyone hurt you, he promised. That night, as they sat closer together than usual, Zephora placed her head on his shoulder. Breathing was soft and even, but Marcus remained awake, hyper-aware of her presence beside him. He had rescued was becoming a woman, and the feelings stirring in his chest were growing more complex by the day. When she looked up at him with those luminous eyes, Marcus saw not just gratitude but something deeper. The bond between them had transcended species, transcended the circumstances of their meeting. In this vast, empty world, they had found something neither had expected. Love was beginning to bloom between the stars. The ships appeared at dawn, sleek Australian cruisers that cut through the morning sky like silver daggers. Marcus watched them descend from the window of their shelter, his heart hammering against his ribs. Beside him, Zephora pressed close to the glass. Her skin pale with fear. They found me, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Over the past months, she had grown into a stunning young woman, her features refined and regal. The scared child he had rescued was gone, placed by someone who carried herself with natural authority despite her exile. Marcus grabbed his emergency pack and pulled Zephora away from the window. We have to move. Now they slipped out the back of the shelter and into the maze of collapsed buildings that stretched toward the old mining tunnels. Behind them, the whine of hover engines grew louder. Harsh voices barked orders in the Australian tongue, and Marcus caught enough to understand they were spreading out to search systematically. Marcus. Zephora stopped suddenly, her hand catching his arm. I cannot run forever. My people. They will never stop hunting me. He turned to face her, struck by the determination in her golden eyes. She had changed so much since he found her, growing not just in body but in strength and resolve. The way she looked at him now made his pulse race. Then we fight, he said simply. Zephora stepped closer. Close enough that he could see the delicate patterns of bioluminescence that traced along her skin when she was emotional. You would risk your life for me? An alien? Someone not of your kind? Marcus cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs tracing the high bones of her cheeks. Zephora, you are my kind now. You're everything to me. The distance between them disappeared. Their lips met in a kiss that was gentle at first, then deepened with months of unspoken longing. Her skin was warm and soft, and when she pressed against him, Marcus felt the universe narrow to this single perfect moment. I love you, she whispered against his lips, the words clear and certain in his language. And I love you, he replied, meaning it with every fiber of his being. The sound of approaching footsteps shattered their moment. Marcus grabbed Zephyra's hand and pulled her deeper into the ruins. They had perhaps minutes before the hunters found their trail. As they reached the entrance to the old mining tunnels, Zephora suddenly stopped and turned back toward their pursuers. Her eyes began to glow with an inner light Marcus had never seen before. What are you doing? He asked. Something I should have done long ago, she replied. And power began to radiate from her small form like heat from a star. The real Zephora, the princess who would one day rule an empire, was finally awakening. The Great Escape the mining tunnel shook as Zephyra's psychic energy erupted outward, shockwave of raw power that sent their Australian pursuers tumbling backward. Marcus stared in amazement as the woman he loved transformed before his eyes, her skin glowing with ethereal light, her hair floating as if suspended in water. The royal bloodline carries gifts, she explained breathlessly, her voice echoing with new authority. I had suppressed them to stay hidden, but I cannot hide anymore. The hunters regrouped quickly, their advanced weaponry whining as it powered up. Marcus grabbed Zephyra's hand and pulled her deeper into the tunnels. His knowledge of the colony's layout was their only advantage now. This way leads to the old transport depot, he said, guiding her through the darkness. If the shuttles still have fuel, they emerged into a vast underground hangar where a dozen mining shuttles sat in various states of disrepair. Marcus ran to the nearest one, his hands flying over the control panel. The engines coughed to life just as armored figures appeared at the tunnel entrance. "Get in!" Marcus shouted, but Zephora was already moving. Her newfound powers creating a barrier of shimmering energy between them and their attackers. The shuttle lurched upward through the depot's emergency exit shaft, bursting into the red daylight of Kepler-4 for 2B's surface. Behind them, the Australian cruisers were already lifting off in pursuit. "Can this ship jump to hyperspace?" Zephora asked, sliding into the co-pilot's seat. Marcus shook his head. "Mining shuttle. Short range only." He banked hard left, diving toward a canyon that might provide cover. "But I know someone who might help us." For 3 days, they played a deadly game of cat and mouse across the sector. Jumping between dead worlds and asteroid fields, Marcus pushed the little shuttle beyond its limits, while Zephora used her growing psychic abilities to mask their energy signature. During brief stops for fuel and supplies, they found moments of intimacy, despite the danger. In the cramped confines of the shuttle, every touch was electric. When Zephora fell asleep against his shoulder during a long hyperspace jump, Marcus marveled at how perfectly she fit against him. "Where are we going?" she asked as they approached a small trading station orbiting a gas giant. "To see Hendrix. He's a smuggler, but he owes me a favor," Marcus replied. "If anyone can get us past the blockades, Tim." The station was a rickety collection of docking bays and merchant stalls. It's the kind of place where questions weren't asked if the price was right. Hendrix, a grizzled veteran with cybernetic implants covering half his face, took one look at Zephora and whistled low. Well. Marcus Chen, traveling with Australian royalty. This should be interesting. You know who she is?" Marcus asked. "Boy, half the galaxy knows by now. Princess Zephora, rightful heir to the Australian throne. Her uncles put a bounty on her head that could buy a small planet." Zephora stepped forward, her bearing regal despite their circumstances. "I can pay you well once I reclaim my throne," Hendrix grinned. "Princess, for the chance to stick it to the Australian military, I'd do this for free. But your boyfriend here already paid the price when he saved my ship 3 years ago." As they transferred to Hendrix' modified freighter, Marcus caught Zephora's hand. The past months had transformed them both, but their love had only grown stronger. 20 years had passed since that desperate escape from Kepler-4 to B. Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above New Geneva, watching the sleek Australian Imperial fleet approach. His hair was now silver, and lines mapped the years across his face. But his eyes still held the same determination that had once saved a lost princess. The station's communication system crackled to life. "This is Empress Zephora, Australian of the United Australian Empire, requesting permission to dock." Marcus smiled at the formal tone. Even after all these years, she still had that hint of playfulness in her voice when she spoke to him. The docking bay filled with Imperial guards in ceremonial armor, their weapons lowered in respect rather than threat. And then she appeared, walking with the fluid grace that had captivated him decades ago. Zephora had grown into her role magnificently, her bearing every inch the Empress. But her golden eyes still held warmth when they found his face. She approached alone, having dismissed her retinue with a gesture. For a moment they simply looked at each other across the years. "You're older," she said softly, reaching up to touch the silver at his temples. "And you're more beautiful than ever," he replied, meaning every word. The kiss they shared was different from their first, deeper and richer with the weight of time and separation. When they broke apart, Zephora rested her forehead against his. "I never forgot you," she whispered. "Everything I built, every alliance I forged, every battle I won, ... It was all to get back to you." Marcus held her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her skin. "I knew you'd come back. I've been waiting. The galaxy has changed," Zephora said, as they walked through the station together, her fingers intertwined with his. "When I reclaimed my throne, I remembered the kindness of one human who risked everything for someone not of his kind. I made sure that humanity was welcomed into the galactic community as equals, not subjects." They stopped at the viewport overlooking Earth, blue and perfect in the starlight. You did all that? Marcus asked, awed. Love changed me, Zephora replied, turning to face him. Your love showed me what leadership truly meant. Not power over others, but protection of those who need it. She took his hands in hers, her skin still warm to his touch. I have a proposal for you, Marcus Chen. I need someone I can trust completely. Someone who sees me not as an empress, but as the woman you rescued from the dust. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What kind of proposal? Zephyra's lips curved in the smile he remembered from their first days together. Marry me. Be my consort, my advisor, my anchor to the compassion that makes leadership worthwhile. The man who had once salvaged scraps from dead worlds looked into the eyes of the Empress who ruled half the galaxy and saw the same scared child he had once fed protein bars in the ruins. Yes, he said simply. As their lips met again, the stars themselves seemed to celebrate. Their love story, born from an act of kindness on a forgotten world, had become the foundation of a new age of peace between the species. The Guardian had found his way home at last,